this guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
The whole idea behind the premise of C-21, the Liberals told the public, was public safety. It's all about public safety. And when the bill was debated on second reading, to first come to this committee, nowhere did the government have this in any of their conversations. They tried to assure Canadians now for a number of years that their attack on firearms and firearm owners in this country was legitimate and it's only for public safety, which we've all seen and clearly see it's got nothing to do with public safety. And to go back to the point I made earlier, this particular bill, when debated in the House, included none of this. So, it's brought in at the 11th hour to, because the Liberals knew that if this was to be debated in the Canadian public, which this impacts, it would be shot down and witnesses would come by the dozens that would speak against it. Now, I would challenge Ms. Dancho's comment. This doesn't affect hundreds of thousands. This affects millions of Canadians and millions of firearms. There are millions of Canadians who hunt and sport shoot. And so what I'd like to do for some time is to go to our legislators here in the room and ask some questions. So can you tell me the intent behind, and I'll start with G. G4, item G here, it's mentioned under 1.2G, a firearm that is a rifle or a shotgun that is capable of discharging centerfire ammunition in a semi-automatic manner that is designed to accept a detachable cartridge magazine with a capacity greater than 5 cartridges of the type for which the firearm was originally designed. Okay, so as I read that, growing up with firearms, I say many firearms who are semi-automatic can accept magazines that are different than the five round mags. We know that 5 round, anything above this in this category is a prohibited device. You can't have a magazine in this category that you're talking about with a magazine greater than 5. So, but are firearms, by their simple design, can a magazine be available that could be brought in that has more than 5? Sure. And does it fit that firearm? Sure it does. That's already a prohibited device, as listed into the code already. So why this is there shows me only one thing. Any firearm that is capable of receiving a magazine greater than 5 rounds is now going to be a prohibited device. And please tell me that isn't so. And if the language that you've written here is wrong, then let's change it. Ms. Clark.
You're correct in how you have interpreted the wording of the description that would be added to the definition of. Right. So
in essence, then the Liberals government has tried to backdoor this, and this is not a reflection of you. They've asked you to do something, but they've backdoored something they've said all along, and that is that we are never going to go after the industry, the hunters and farmers that have these type of firearms. And what you in essence have done is you've created a whole class of potential criminal because they have a firearm that has the capability of receiving a magazine that's greater than 5. That's what you're saying? So that by G now we have now created an administrative offense for a gun that's been in existence for decades and decades and decades that has no history of public safety issues, and now we've made millions of Canadians criminals because they now have a firearm. So in reality, as Ms. Dancho has indicated, we're talking if there are 500,000 firearms of just one type in existence, and it's worth $600 on a conservative estimate. Like we're talking conservatively, small c, billions of dollars just on this alone. And I don't understand, first of all, your ruling, Chair, on how this fits with anything. It's like you've got some direction that you've got to try and push this through no matter what. And I tell you, this is absolutely wrong. So this not only affects the firearms that exist now, but it exists any variants that might come out in the future, like the Order in Council did in May of 2020. Like we had a few firearms on that list, and then as the days and weeks and months went on, the Firearms Center have just added more and more and more and more firearms. And now in this act, we see again hundreds and hundreds of firearms added here that make absolutely no sense. I mean, we have to keep going back and remind ourselves, this is about public safety. It's about public safety. That's what C-21, the Liberals tell us, it's supposed to be all about. Please tell me, show me the evidence. Mr. Chang brought this motion forward, and I respect his service, and I have 35 years in policing as well. I don't see how anything along that we've talked about in G is going to have any substantive impact on public safety, period. And if we don't impact public safety, what are we wasting our time for? Like, seriously, what are we doing here? Like, this is absolutely ludicrous that we have this sort of,
Mr.
broad brush.
Mr. Motz, I would encourage you to ask them questions they can answer.
Yeah, I can have commentary before they get to my question.
Okay.
A broad brush approach to confuse those in Canada who think that the Liberals are actually doing something for public safety. If they're doing something for public safety and all the money they've been pouring at this for the last number of years since they've been in power for 7 years, we wouldn't have had 174 additional violent offenses in the last year from the year before of homicides. Like we have a problem in this country, and it isn't the lawful gun owners. This act does nothing but target law-abiding Canadians. Nothing. And so where in G do we talk about ensuring that criminals are the focus of this? Like, they're not going to, so you're going to make all these, changes to definitions in 84.1, and we're going to try and add parts to firearm, to prohibition orders, and we're going to, update the definition of a prohibited firearm by taking out or. We're talking about, including prohibited firearms that have a muzzle energy exceeding 1,000 joules, which is like the big game hunters that go to Africa. We're going to, all the sort of stuff that we're talking about, a bore diameter greater than 20 mils. Where's the evidence to say that these firearms, what's happening right here in this list of firearms, and and everything about this in section G here, it actually improves public safety? Have you found, like, you've been asked to make this legislation, and obviously it's based on some evidence somewhere that says we have a problem in this country that we have to identify these firearms because they are a danger to the public. Can you tell us what evidence that's there to support this legislation, please?
The definition was based on a policy decision that was made at the political level?
Right. So it's a Liberal policy that says we want to get rid of firearms, we want to attack legal firearm owners, so this is what we're going to do, arbitrarily. I feel sorry for you guys. I really do. You've been put in this tough spot. No, seriously, you've been put in a very, very difficult spot to do the will of the masters who suggest that we're doing all this fancy stuff for public safety, and they've done diddly squat for public safety. Diddly squat. I'm embarrassed for them. Embarrassed. And they should be embarrassed themselves. Mr. Chang, I have all due respect for you. This is not an amendment that's going to do anything for public safety. Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. And all the firearms that are listed here, as Ms. Dancho asked, I would really like to know, as she asked, and I would commit that you guys do that, if you're able to provide this committee with the list of firearms that is is listed in the schedule, that fit the definition under G, that says it's a semi-automatic rifle or a shotgun, because that applies to either one, and it has the capacity or the ability to accept a magazine that could accept a magazine that has greater than 5 rounds in it, 5 cartridges, because that would include many of them. And the fact that we already know that for most of this, if you have a magazine that exceeds the capacity with which it's legal, it's already a prohibited device in this country as it is. And yet we're going to make something more illegal because the criminals are going to be, very, very concerned about following, to make sure that they don't have a firearm that has, capable of having, a magazine that can take bigger than 5. Now, so do you have a list, and how many of those on this list, give me a number. Like we'll want the whole number, the whole volume of the voluminous models and makes of all of them that fit G specifically. Can you provide those for us?
So to answer the member's question.
I can't hear you, sorry.
Sorry, is this loud? Is this better?
It's not very loud, but.
To answer the committee member's question, we do not have a list with us of firearms. What I can speak to is what this motion does before you, and what this motion does before you is it amends the definition of prohibited firearm to add what are currently in the classification regulations and bringing them in. And, sorry, go ahead.
It's just the definition.
It's the definition. So the definition includes G, which is a definition of, it's an evergreen definition. But I do not have the list. We do not have the list with us. I understand that there are other motions that might be brought before the committee that
So
we don't have that with us.
With the chair's indulgence, I certainly would ask that if you have that list and you can prepare it and provide it to the committee at your earliest convenience, that would be awesome. I appreciate the fact that G in all of these make adjustments to 84(1) of the code, of the criminal code. I get it, but then they become a prohibited weapon. That becomes a prohibited weapon. Right? So in G, you're defining what G stands for under prohibited firearm. 1.2, E, F, and G, and H are all going to be amended, right?
That is
and
correct.
with that amendment, you've just made what I've talked about for the last 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever, prohibited firearms. They're prohibited weapons now. And I hate to use the weapon because they're not a weapon, they're a firearm. And so they're not just a definition. The impact of what you're doing is significant right across the whole firearm industry, or across the entire Canadian landscape that people use for hunting and protection from livestock and things like that on farms and ranches across this country. It does absolutely nothing for public safety, as I said, but it prohibits thousands and upon tens of thousands of firearms in this country owned by millions of Canadians and different models of firearms. And so that's where, at this point in time, I would really like to see that particular section or that particular list, of what it is that we're actually talking about. And I see here, we're changing the bore diameter. Now, can you tell me on 2.1 that you're after on definition of prohibited in subsection 1, bore diameter is, and you're describing what it is, but you're talking about making the bore diameter 20 mils or greater would now be considered to be prohibited firearm. Is that what you're proposing?
Those firearms are currently already prohibited
Yes.
pursuant to the classification regulations. And this provision adds a definition of what's meant by bore diameter. And that's to add clarity.
Okay.
Because
But
that issue did arise after the May 1st, 2020 OIC.
I was just going to say that they became prohibited
They were
again in the order in council of May 2020,
That's right.
right? Which was asinine to begin with.